was a 3-second count on this week's Baseball America Google Plus Hangout. I'm John Manuel, along with Jim Shonerd. Michael and Anna is on the road today up to Charlottesville for this weekend's big Florida State Virginia matchup. But Jim, we're here to talk about a few other series and kind of get everybody ready for the college baseball weekend ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim is I think it's our first hangout that we've done where we're both in the office. And I just want to pay a little homage to former BA staffer Chris Klein. But you have curated his Elvis poster fairly well, Jim. I mean, I think
it's pretty well preserved. Yep.
That rip has been there for a while, has it not? In the plastic.
Oh yeah, that's original.
That's the thing. And despite that rip, despite that hole, the Elvis, that's '68 leather pants special NBC. The last time he was really super cool, Elvis, pictured behind you. So. You've done a nice job preserving that, and I think Chris Klein will be proud of you. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware. That's taken some doing to preserve the king, has it not?
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, it's a matter of just, it's like a museum. You just can't touch anything.
I just think that you have two all-time cultural touchstones there of the last half of the 20th century in Elvis and Admiral Akbar.
Oh, definitely.
And, of course, the nice 21st century twist on the Admiral there back when Ole Miss was considering adding him as the Rebel mascot. And talk about opportunity missed. It would have been amazing.
That would have been, I can't even imagine, having Admiral Akbar at every Ole Miss. We'd be going to Ole Miss games all the time.
Ole Miss would be ranked #1 in every week's rankings, no matter what, because of the mascot. Would have been the greatest mascot in the history of college sports. But, Jim, we do have some good college baseball series this weekend. One thing I wanted to point out is that the NCAA has been doing a nice job at NCAA.com of listing college baseball on TV this weekend, and of course, started last night with LSU at Arkansas on the SEC network. And Jim, it's just it also points out the difficulty of really the SEC network and college baseball's national TV schedule really starting, not necessarily starting. There's been a lot on, but pretty consistently now, every Thursday night, the rest of the regular season, there's going to be a game on SEC Network, a Southeastern Conference game. And I think the SEC kind of deserves the attention. It's 5 of our top 6 teams in our top 25 rankings are Southeastern Conference teams, TCU the only interloper. But you're starting LSU at Arkansas in prime time at 7 o'clock last night. And, it's just the perpetual challenge of college baseball that all college sports attention really was pointed by the schools and by the NCAA at March Madness. I mean, it's just a challenge, I guess, that college baseball is always going to have. I don't know if there's this talk of the college baseball season being moved back, but now there's also talk of college basketball moving its season back to get away from football. I don't see how college baseball is ever going to have the platform all to itself. Do you ever see that? Could that ever really happen where college baseball is the sport that college athletics are pushing on people like they're push football and basketball at this time of year?
I can't see it ever being all to itself. I mean, if this thing with basketball goes through, and I think the rumor we had heard was that they might push it back as far as like starting early January after the bowl season ends. So if they go January to May, May Madness instead of March Madness, but then, college baseball would be screwed if that happens. I mean, they would have to move it back. I mean, not even just because of the weather stuff. I mean, I know that's a big, kind of been the big push about it this year, but I mean, you're just going to get buried if 80% of your season is competing with basketball. And I mean, so they would have to. I mean, if they push it back to, start in April and go from April to August or something. By then football camps are starting up, and also you got the the big leagues would be getting closer to their playoff race. I mean, it'd just be I don't know that there's really an ideal solution to have it all to yourself. I think you're always going to be in competing with somebody.
Always going to be competing with somebody. I think that's a great way to put it. Even if they started the season, like you said, even if you had a summer season, if you started it in April, you're going to be starting it at the height of if college basketball moves its season back to when college basketball is really getting kicked out into its highest gear. So I think that's one thing that's been lost in all this is the college basketball people feel just as aggrieved as baseball, and not for weather, for attention. So
as a football.
Yeah, it's all football. I don't know why people won't say it, but football's the problem. So football was the problem with Title IX. Football's the problem with lack of attention for other sports, football sucks all the air out of the room. So the Big Ten won the inaugural football championship this year. A Big Ten school with Ohio State won the first college football playoff. And Big Ten baseball teams deal with a lot of weather issues, Jimmer. And the Big Ten is one of the conferences that's starting league play this weekend. Not all league play. Iowa, if you want to watch on TV, and we had an email sent in to us at podcast@baseballamerica.com. That was Rob Dale. Sent that in late February, and we're finally getting to Rob's email now. But Rob did ask that we talk about college baseball games on TV, and that's one of the Big Ten teams that's on TV this weekend. It's not on the Big Ten Network because the Big Ten Network shows a lot of basketball and football reruns this time of year instead of showing a ton of baseball. The baseball on the Big Ten Network does get kicked into gear soon, but if you want to watch the Big Ten on an ESPN-type network, it's on ESPN3 this weekend with Iowa at Kansas. But the league play does start this weekend, Jim, and our preseason favorite was Maryland. They're at home against Minnesota. You got Rutgers at Purdue. You got Michigan and Nebraska and Michigan State at Ohio State, as well as Indiana, which is one of our top 25 teams, on the road at Penn State. That's one, I guess. I kind of look at that Indiana-Penn State as one where Penn State's finally won 2 in a row. They're off to a 1-13 start. Feels like Penn State right now is almost kind of like the BC, as we see Boston College in the ACC, where you have some of these bottom feeders in a conference where it feels like if Indiana goes on the road and doesn't sweep, it's almost like it's disappointing. They've won 11 in a row. Indiana's really playing very well, but it feels like it's almost too high of a standard to hold Indiana to the standard of you must sweep Penn State on the road. That sticks out to me. What sticks out to you on the Big Ten standings and the Big Ten weekend coming up this weekend?
Yeah, I'll start Maryland getting its first Big Ten series. It was notable, and obviously they should. You should expect them to. I mean, they probably should beat Minnesota. I mean, getting Minnesota at home. I mean, that's a series they at least need to win, if not sweep. And then, yeah, I mean, with Indiana, we kind of we posted our first in-season field of 64 today, and you and I were talking about putting it together. We considered Indiana as projecting them as a host team, but you kind of look at their schedule, and pretty much all their big series, their toughest series, are all on the road. They get Maryland on the road, Illinois on the road, Iowa on the road, Nebraska, which that could actually cost them if you're looking for quality wins, but. So so it's important for them to get off to a good start, and on the other thing with Indiana is they have these 2 series wins with Stanford and Fullerton, but we don't know how impressive those will actually be come a month or 2 from now. But I mean that's an interesting series. I'm just looking else here. I mean, Michigan State is a team we kind of liked coming into the year. Michigan's kind of they were a team we had projected as a regional team, but they've okay. They haven't really. They're 11-8, really anything too impressive. But I'm
going to interrupt you for a second, Jim, because you mentioned the field of 64, and that's the other thing we probably should talk about. I wasn't sure that had gone live yet on the site, but I'm glad to see that it is. You did great work on that this week and getting that up, and it's obviously it's early. We're just starting conference play, so it's a little bit hard to project some of these. But I thought a couple things stood out in your field of 64. Number one, we do have these SEC teams, jammed at the top of the rankings, but I think it was pretty difficult to project out that the SEC would keep having 5 teams as top 8 national seeds. Mm-hmm. What was the toughest call on the top 8 national seeds? In this projected field of 64, we went LSU, Florida, TCU, Vanderbilt as the top 4, then UCLA, Texas A&M, Florida State, Central Florida. What was the toughest one to leave out, and who else was in your mix this early to be a top 8 national seed?
Well, 3 teams. USC was certainly in the mix. They were we kind of went back and forth on. And with the SEC teams, I mean, I'll say right now 5 of them are in our top 8 rankings. So you would kind of think, well, maybe they should all be. But obviously they're not going to. And we talked about this on the podcast a little bit this past Monday, where they get into conference play, they're all going to candle each other a bit. They're not all going to win 20 games in conference play. Someone's going to end up going 16-14 or something like that. But and the other thing, I look back through the past few years, there is, as far as South Carolina goes, there is precedent for 3 teams from the one division being national seeds. I think that was 2011 where them and Vandy and Florida were all national seeds. But that was the year where the SEC West was like way down. I think only one team had a winning record from that division this year, or that year I should say. But this year obviously you've got LSU was obviously really good. A&M, Mississippi State. We expect to, they've kind of tailed off a little bit. But obviously that's still a quality club. Alabama looks like they're playing better. So we've kind of talked about it. There are no breaks. Obviously even Missouri's been better. There are no breaks in the SEC, so no one's gonna. It's hard to see that many teams reeling off 20-plus wins in conference. But right now, we believe a lot in those top three. With LSU, Florida, Vandy, and then A&M's 22-0. Most of their schedule is manageable for as far as getting as far as racking up a lot of quality wins, I should say. As far as who have to play at home on the road, they do have to go to LSU, but other than that, most of their toughest series are at home, so it's within reach for them. As we kind of touched on in the Field of 64 itself, you wonder how they're losing Stubblefield and Minter will catch up to them at some point, but for now we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And there are a few teams that when you look at the at-large is we kind of gave benefits of the doubt to teams like Fullerton and North Carolina, a couple teams like that that have kind of been up and down. But we believed in those teams' talent coming into the year, so we'll give them a little more time to sort it out. Clemson did not get the benefit of the doubt, though. That seems a bit of a mess.
This early in the season is really hard to you're balancing what the teams have done and then the projection. Mm-hmm. And so the first four out, if memory serves, you had Clemson, New Mexico, Cal State, Northridge, and Tulane.
Yes, that's correct.
Certainly, Northridge and Tulane are two teams that have pretty gaudy records. A lot of Tulane fans that are up in our business every Monday in the chat or on our Twitter feeds. But it just doesn't seem like those two leagues, I think, are part of the problem. We talked about it in the podcast at the Big West. That's kind of part of their issue. Mm-hmm. Is that there are a lot of under 500 teams, and it's hard to see that league's RPI being good enough that they're going to, that league's going to wind up having more than two bids. I think it's kind of the same thing, really, in the American Conference. Is it not for Tulane that you've got not as much? They have some winning records, but the RPIs for a lot of the teams in that league aren't super good. It does seem like that league has a better chance of getting three bids. Maybe a third team, whether it's East Carolina, which is red hot, I think is won 10 of its last 11, South Florida, which has won 9 in a row. Because that league is more likely to get a third bid than the Big West.
Yeah, I was looking at I kind of ran into this problem when I was figuring out what to do with Rice as well, where the Conference USA has some real anchors in that when I was considering whether to give them a national seed, or whether they could be. But with Tulane, they're just their non-conference schedule has not been particularly imposing. I think right now their best series win was at Pepperdine, who's a good team, but right now they're outside the top 100 in the RPI. They could get in there, but they just don't have that. They're just not going to have that many chances to get quality wins. They do play obviously Houston and UCF. They're kind of the two top teams we've had in that league all along. And Houston looks like it is playing better, but obviously we like UCF a lot. But outside of those, when you get chances against those two teams, you've got to. Tulane's gonna have to win those series. That's really that is, and they do have a couple of midweek games with LSU, so they've got to win. They've got to win those games. They can't just say, well, we lost we won one but lost 2 out of 3 or whatever. They're gonna have to win some of those series.
Well, Jim, we'll close with this. I know you're going to work on this, and we've talked about this in the office, but your research really kind of has shown that the magic way to get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large team is to win games on the road. Mm-hmm. That's your best path.
It really is.
Being an at-large team.
Winning road games and being good in your conference. I think it kind of depends. If you're a power conference team, you can be 500 or so. But if you're a Tulane or a Big West club, you gotta really dominate. It's tough to get in finishing. I think there are only a handful of teams that have gotten at large as bubble teams, finishing lower than second in their conference in a non-power conference. It's not. I think there was one. Fullerton was one last year. I think they finished third in the Big West. Old Dominion got one. They were fourth in Conference USA. But it's tough to do. You gotta win on the road, and if either be good. If your power conference, be at least 500, and if you're not, then you got to really dominate.
Yeah, and there are other teams that Notre Dame you mentioned that was kind of
Notre Dame's they're 14-4 on the road. That's going to give them giving them a huge leg up.
That's it. When you're a northern school, if you get off that kind of a start, especially this year with the weather, and I think we have some recognition of this. I talked to a couple coaches just about scheduling in the last couple weeks, and they're very interested in these early season neutral site tournaments because they're finding with the new RPI rules, the neutral site games really give you a little bit of a bump that home wins don't. So those early season tournaments have a little bit more cachet now than they ever did before. So
yeah, Missouri State's in their club in that same boat that we put in there.
That's another one, and you profiled them in the weekend preview. So a lot of good stuff, and obviously follow Jim on Twitter at Jim Shonerd BA. He keeps up with it all weekend, all during the week, and I think you're going to find if you start following Jim that Jim really likes the process of how the non-conference teams go. So I know I'm going to have fun. I learned something just talking to you about the story this week, Jim. I know I'm going to learn more during the year, so I'm excited to see how you handle like the stock report that we've done over the years and kind of
got some. I think we've got some nice ideas lined up for the as we get into the second half. I think we have some cool stuff for people.
So you're a little bit more on the nitty gritty. Mike Lanana can do the nitty gritty, but Mike Lanana, his Vine game is very, very strong. So follow Jim at Jim Shonerd BA. Follow
Vine is strong with Mike.
It really is. He's had good timing. That Davidson Vine that he had the other day, the Davidson North Carolina Vine was awesome. Obviously, it's going to be hard to top the one at USC where he gets the slow motion home run, but then if only he had slow motion on the high five in the press box by the Southern Cal kids. That would have been perfect. That way he'd have the slow motion on that one. That was probably the one shining moment for those student journalists. It was awesome.
I think so.
All right, Jim, good stuff. We will be back next week with another Hangout. We'll be back next Monday with our podcast every week on college baseball. Plenty of college baseball coverage all the time at baseballamerica.com. For Jim Shonerd, I'm John Manuel. We'll see you on the next Google Plus Hangout. So long, everybody.